It's 2020 and my game of the year is probably going to be the new Crash Bandicoot game. That's weird, but pretty awesome, right? Crash 4 does something that none of the post-Naughty Dog Crash games really did. Rather than focusing mostly on what can be done with Crash Bandicoot as a brand, coming up with new premises, gimmicks, and settings to keep the series going, Crash 4 puts the microscope under the original game's platforming design and decides to actually develop that further. Then it adds its own gimmicks and ideas to this foundation and pushes those new mechanical elements as well. It's incredible to see the core platforming design of the original Crash games return and get such a workout. In hindsight, even the original trilogy meandered and failed to fully capitalize on the core of Crash's gameplay, focusing more on marketable imagery and gimmicks to beef up the brand. 3 especially piled on the minigames and new gameplay styles, smothering the original core gameplay to a great extent. 4 has its quirks and new ideas, but they're supplemental to an overwhelming amount of core Crash content. The style of platforming play in Crash Bandicoot is all about forward momentum. Spinning and sliding attacks can all be done without stopping. The slide can even transition into a jump on or off firm ground. The body slam, which you're forced to stop to perform, still propels you in a direction. Those basics already make for some fun, addictive play. You always want to keep moving forward without stopping. Can you navigate and survive while keeping that flow going? Where things really shine is how those basics work in tandem with the crate system in Crash. Essentially, crates are one-time use platforms that can either disappear or explode once jumped on. The crates create these puzzle-like platforming scenarios, where choosing which crates to jump on next, whether it be in advance if you're lucky, or on the fly, makes for a satisfying challenge. You have to devise plans quickly and then execute on them with efficiency. The game gets so much mileage out of these basics, pushing these core Crash mechanics more than they have been before throughout the main missions and the devious additional challenge rooms. I never thought I'd get to experience that, judging by the direction the series took. Crash 4 goes further though, and on top of that adds powers like time manipulation, dimensional shifts, gravity shifts, surprisingly not holding back on pushing these new elements into challenging extremes too, fully capitalizing on everything. As a result, this game ends up being more challenging than the originals, which I didn't see coming but greatly enjoyed. Not to say this is purely a mechanical success, the brand does get a workout as well. The writing is mixed, there's some laughs, some groaners, but the animation remains consistently entertaining and funny throughout, Cortex being a highlight. In terms of graphics, rather than haphazardly sticking realistic textures on the original assets like the recent Crash remakes, Crash 4 goes for a more appealing, cartoony graphical style, more akin to an illustration come to life, and it fits this series a lot better. It's all very appealing to the eye. Outside of some cutscene stutter, the game runs a lot better than the remakes too. The game aims for 60 frames per second on all consoles instead of being capped at 30 like the Insane Trilogy was on consoles. Even the new playable characters are surprisingly enjoyable. Cortex's platform-making gun adds a cool new element to the puzzle platforming-like gameplay, as do Torna's grapple hook and Dingo Dial's vacuum. I think it's decent of the game that it doesn't force these characters on you that often in the main story if you're not into their style as much as Crash is, but they're still given ample room to be explored in optional levels. There's so much content in this game. The only addition to the gameplay I never quite got into were the new flame crates that intermittently ignite and kill you in a blaze. There wasn't anything too fun or challenging about having to stop your forward momentum to wait for these things to cease being on fire so that you can smash them. Unlike an obstacle that turns itself on and off indefinitely, there's no way to avoid a fire crate's attack in some creative way and keep moving if, you want to hit the crate and collect its contents. If you arrive at the crate at a bad time, you're just gonna have to stop and wait. Not the worst idea for a new element to add into things, I just don't think the game benefited that much from it. While I like that Crash 4 has more challenging and longer levels than the original trilogy, a knock-on effect is that time trials have perhaps been made overly demanding. Time trials require you to beat a level fast without dying, and the punishing endurance round this demands of the player, I think is going to make even trying them for a vast amount of people just too daunting. Perhaps things now have been taken a little far for these specific challenges. Maybe splitting some of these levels up into smaller chunks like the older games would have been beneficial. Another gripe is the loading times. Booting up a level takes a while, much longer than it ever did 2 decades ago. At least respawning at checkpoints is fairly instant, so that's good. But getting in and out of levels takes a rather long time, so I'm thinking Crash 4 is gonna get just that little bit better once it arrives on systems with SSD support. In any case, I really enjoyed Crash 4. If you enjoy late 90s and early 2000s 3D platformers, you're gonna love this game. It's pure gamey platforming action from start to finish, with very little fat or downtime. It takes Crash mechanics old and new and squeezes all the juice out of them into a satisfying stream of pulpy platforming goodness. Highly recommended.